good morning, good evening, good afternoon, folks. It's the Guerrilla Economist coming to you live on this edition of Rogue News in the Morning. Rogue News in the Morning. We have with us, of course, not only the man, ALGO Cowboy, working the airways, making sure the sound is coming out crispy and clean. You know what I mean? Also, Veles is joining us as a surprise guest or a host or whatever. He's just with us today, guys, and it's going to be fun. Lots of things going on, lots of things happening, guys. Big, beautiful bill. Bitcoin adoption slowing down. RFK Jr. made a revelation for the normies, not us, because we already knew this stuff years ago. But lots of things happening because why are we reporting it? Because this opens the way and the door for litigation. So lots of stuff, guys. So I don't know where you guys want to start. But Veles, good morning, buddy. How are you? And Cowboy, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, guys. Well, I don't know. There's more. Before I get into this stuff, there's more revelations about that Idaho shooting thing with the fire.
Oh, let's do that. Yeah, let's follow up.
Yeah, we found out the guy's a brony. You guys know what a brony is?
Is that like they're like you eat them? They're kind of sweet.
No.
Grandma makes them. They're chocolate.
No, those are brownies, bro.
Oh,
Talking about a brony. B-R-O-N-Y. Okay, what a brony is?
a jabroni.
Well, it's worse than a jabroni. A brony is a guy who is obsessed with the cartoon as well as the toys, as well as the fandom of My Little Ponies. Do you remember the cartoon from the 80s and the 90s?
Oh, my God.
Yes.
What?
He dresses up.
There's ill.
Guys, let me show you. This is shocking. Okay, let me show you guys. Try to not vomit what I'm about to show you. Watch this. This is like insane, right? Here we go. I'm going to show you a brony convention, okay? And you guys are going to just
is this like furries but not as exciting?
No, yeah, exactly. This is the furry is the final boss. Okay, the furry is the final boss. This is before the first. Go ahead, man. Pull my screen in so you can see it, Cowboy. There you go. Okay. Here, watch this, guys. A quick little 3-minute clip. I think it's This adds context to what we're dealing with here, guys.
My Little Pony is a surprisingly epic experience.
Wow.
This one goes out to all of our brony brothers. And this one goes out to all of you Pegasus sisters. We know that friendship is...
Stop it now.
I've been a fan for almost 4 years. You get invested in them. You want to watch their journey. You grow with them. As you watch their story, you start thinking about your own. Like, how does this apply to me? They're relatable,
mental disorder.
And
These guys, yeah.
they're well written.
They cartoon for 3-year-olds.
They feel real.
Please bring me a pony for
The SSRI usage percentage in this group is probably above
It's
80.
huge.
And we are one of the only sole distributors of the My Little Pony comic series. We have exclusive covers that you can't get anywhere else. Our crown
I can't
restraining
anymore.
It's kind of what we
myself.
call
I
the
am
red
restraining
label
myself
edition.
right now on a
It all
biblical
goes
level.
for $200. And then if you want to up your game a little bit, we have, and this is, as far as we know, the last one for sale in existence.
We're going to lose
The Black
viewers, V.
Label edition.
That's what a brony is, guys. Is an entire subculture of incel, SSRI uptaking weirdos. These are adults. These are people with mental disorders. No man worth his testosterone would do such a thing.
So Mamdani voters, everyone.
Every single one of them are Mamdani. Every single one of them are Kamala Harris. Every single one is an auto pen voter.
Dude, our
Auto
viewership,
pen.
nice. Our viewership went up immediately by like 15% right when you shut that video off.
Yeah, it's dude. But this is the revelation that's coming out. There's pictures of the shooter in brony outfits, and he's got the brony toys. And here's the funny thing also. His dad is connected to a certain country in the Middle East. Yes. Our friends in the Levant. Our friends from the Levant. Yes. Yeah.
You mean Madagascar?
Oh, yeah, that's nowhere near the Levant, Cowboy.
Oh, shoot. Sorry, guys.
So it would have been better if it was Madagascar. So the question becomes: Is this an MK Ultra thing? Is this a false flag? I mean, there's a lot of things swirling. Maybe he's just a nut job. Maybe he's crazy. Maybe the connections here are coincidental, but also maybe not. Veles, your thoughts on this craziness?
I'm still trying to not vomit. And to all of you in the audience, I want to apologize. I did not know we were opening with this. I'm trying to contain myself. I'm using my 963 hertz tuning fork over here to try and cast back the demons. I look at that, and all I can think of is the psychological operations people in the intelligence community just licking their lips at how easy it will be to manipulate people out of a community like that to do their bidding. Yeah. Oh, God.
Unbelievable, right?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I hate to say this, but I mean, going all the way back to the 1950s, trying to sprinkle some seriousness into this. This is why, no joke, this is why, and it wasn't just the Central Intelligence Agency, but this is why intelligence agencies took such an interest when the UFO movement, I guess you would call it, or people with an interest in that topic in the 50s and 60s, because they saw it as disaffected individuals that would make perfect targets for them to manipulate as needed and to use them as like a petri dish to see what can we do to this community by messing with their sense of reality and similar. And this is the same thing. And what's almost sad about this is I'm reminded of Eugene Levy and the other Second City TV actors and actresses that many of you will know through their time also on Saturday Night Live, who did the fake documentary about people who go to dog shows. It's same thing here. That or I hate to say it, the moms in these beauty pageants for girls under the ages of 10.
Toddlers, toddler beauty pageants. Like Jean-Benet Ramsey was a victim of that.
It's like you need a hobby and therapy in the worst way possible.
100%.
But yeah, but again, folks, I mean, if you step back and you look at this, and as more details come out about this particular individual, this is all done to ridicule. This is all done to reduce any believability. This is straight out of the Franklin scandal and similar content we've covered, where you've got folks who commit acts and or come forward and say there's these horrible things happening or whatever, but because they came from a lower socioeconomic area of the country, or their hobbies and interests are very non-traditional or what have you, they immediately lose credibility.
Absolutely right. And the other thing also is that when you make the case as ridiculous as you say, right? You make it like so outlandish. This guy's just he's just a crazy kid. It kind of also is the perfect smokescreen and cover for what you're actually doing, which also, coincidentally, Veles, brings me to this whole Mamdani thing. The more I listen to this thing, the more I look at this kid, I'm starting to realize he's never going to be mayor of New York City. He's not. There's just no freaking way, right? Because all of Wall Street is against this kid. That's number one. Number two, he's literally out there saying the verboten thing that commies should never say in public, which is we need to seize the means of production, right? And the thing is like, what is the question I'm asking when I'm looking at Mamdani and his out of nowhere? Oh, he's just working class. No, he's not. He lives in a $2 million New York City apartment that's paid for by mom and dad. His mom is an established Bollywood producer director. His dad is a tenured professor in Columbia in New York City, Columbia University, Ivy League, right? This is not some kid who came from some working class struggle here, immigrant kid. No, this kid is very well to do. Most Indians who went to Uganda and left since the Idi Amin days, right? And they fled Uganda. They fled very wealthy. These are very business astute people. These are not people who are like struggling refugees. And that's what they're trying to paint for most people with this Mamdani thing. So the question becomes, what are they distracting us from with this kid, Veles. What's your take on that guy? And also Cowboy, what do you think? What do you guys think?
My quick take is he's a media creation.
Yes.
He's a test balloon.
Mm.
He is again, we say it so often, folks. If it works, keep using it. They've done this so many times. We're going to come out of the gate with some form of socialist. We're going to say a bunch of really crazed things, and then we're going to monitor social media. Yeah. And then we're going to monitor Twitter and X, and we're going to monitor your cell phones, and we're going to monitor what people are saying about what this person is saying. And then we're going to identify those things they said that are a little crazy or a whole lot crazy that actually have some legs to them, that the public might accept that. And then we're going to fine tune that, and then we're going to bring out another person. Mm. And then the second person will be more aligned, but still radical. And then we'll continue, to what we were saying on last Friday's program. It's about the cities. We're going to continue to keep trying to find somebody who's just palatable enough, but said out loud, "Hey, as soon as I take office, I'm doing this stuff." Algo?
Yeah, I can't diverge from that opinion. I think we've said it enough times. If there is a figure in the mainstream media who is very prominently displayed, and what they do is they elicit a reaction, whether it's extremely positive or extremely negative, that's all done on purpose. The media itself they aren't not funded by viewership at this point. They're funded by advertisement, largely from pharmaceutical companies who are aligned to the left and, quite frankly, the far left. So at this point, whoever they're bringing out, you got to pay attention to what they're trying to elicit in your mind, as opposed to, what the surface level situation is.
I'll also throw in this soundbite. This goes for, and I don't even want to say the other side, but this also goes for another quote unquote form of extreme, which is we have the candidate in New York, obviously, if you could even define it, as politically aligned with more strong left-wing views. Although I know there are some who say socialists are actually right-wing, but that's a political science argument. But the other type of person I'll throw into this mix is, turn back the dial, folks, to the 80s. David Duke. David Duke is the quote-unquote right-wing version of the Zohan there in New York.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
David Duke we're all old enough to remember all the David Duke jokes and everything else, but we said like David Duke's a hazard and all kinds of fun stuff.
Versus Robert Byrd out of West Virginia, who actually was a Klan member.
Yeah, that Hillary swooned over. Wasn't Byrd from Arkansas?
No.
He wasn't, right?
No. He what did they used to call him? They called him the grand man of the Senate or whatever. His main claim to fame, other than all the highways,
I think the voice of the Senate or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He, other than all the highways he got built in West Virginia, for which the people of that state were deeply thankful for having the jobs. He knew the rules of procedure better than anybody. Mm-hmm. And so you knew you really didn't want to piss him off because he would tie you up in bureaucracy and you'd never get anything done.
I thought he was the Grand Wizard or Grand Master of the Senate.
He was a Grand Wizard once, which he described as youthful indiscretion, and then a comedian made a comment, yes, when he was still in the Confederacy.
Nice. That guy was as old as dirt when he died, man. Byrd was what, over 100 years old, I think he was, right?
Yeah, well, they used to joke about Strom Thurmond the same way, that he was the only person to have served in both the Confederate and U.S. government.
Nice. And anytime you see Columbia University in somebody's history, bet on them being a communist. What a lot of people don't know about, so the Frankfurt School, this is going back 100 years. Yeah. So they're the Institute for Social Research, and they're from Frankfurt, Germany, but key members ended up setting up at Columbia University and eventually making their way to California. And I think they set up in Santa Barbara, or maybe I forget exactly where, but they invented critical theory. Like they, pretty much critical theory, which got turned into critical race theory because they tried to do the communist thing where the workers unite, but the workers were too happy making money and living good lives. And so that didn't work. No one's going to rebel against a good life. So then they try to focus it on, race and gender and all this stuff. And here we are today. Now that was going on, 70 years ago, they started that plan. So, these people, and it's all an extension, I think, of going back to all the stuff we talk about, Davos and, Rome and the Praetorian and all that. They're not thinking in decades. Like they might have lost in 2024, when Trump won, but they'll hang back for another 50 years or 20 or 10 or 6 months. Like they never stop. They never, ever, ever, ever stop. But the difference is that now we have identified them. So the key here is to make sure that we never stop. And that's what we're doing here.
Yeah, it's the long game that you often hear us say, folks, on Rogue. But the other thing to Algo's point, and this goes back to stuff we were saying on Rogue in 2020, and not just us. It was said by many, including Mike Moore, which is, this is the message you never want to hear, because it's like, okay, we're past the storm has passed. I've cleaned up my yard. I took care of the tree that fell over. Now I can get back to just living my life. And it's like, no, I know you don't want to hear this, but it's like, no. Every day of your life is a battle. There's, now for people who are of deep religious conviction or spiritual conviction, they may just say, well, yes, of course. But this never ends. This never ends. One of the things I'd like to point out too about the Zohan is the comment he made about billionaires. He was on Meet the Press and he was asked, should billionaires exist? Now, if that's not a planted question, I don't know what is. And his response was, we shouldn't. Now, what he explicitly said is that billionaires represent a disproportionate influence on wealth and on people's ability to live their lives. Now, let's pause on that for a moment. The problem is he's going with an extremist view of should they exist? Should someone be allowed to possess $1 billion of wealth? He's saying no. But as we're well aware, not all, I mean, I know people and families that are in that neck of the woods. Not every billionaire out there is evil and in bed with Jeff Epstein, but there's quite a few of them that, have a godlike worldview themselves as part of that mix, who are a problem. And so this is very, very subtle psychological influence. Yeah. This is very, very subtle manipulation, because this, if I could be sitting in a room right now with lead-lined walls and a phone made before 1985, because it has to be built in the United States, in the kind of life I used to have, and sitting around with people who never see daylight and all they do is ponder, this actually indicates to me, at least in a small way, that people of extreme wealth and people of extreme influence, apex elites, are, shall I say, nervous. Because they wouldn't be planting this seed about, look at this crazy guy who wants to run New York and his insane commentary about billionaires. It's like, well, the problem isn't whether or not you should exist as a billionaire. The problem is, what are you doing with your billions? And do you have certain eugenicist ideas behind the stuff you put your money in? So to me, we're going to take a ridiculed extremist and they're going to say things that, if you step back, like I said, the problem is not with billionaires per se, or having $1 billion in wealth. The problem is there is a certain cadre of billionaires out there that have absolutely no positive intentions for any of us based on how they view the world. And so we're going to stick this strutting peacock on the news. And we're going to make him say really stupid stuff when it comes to people of great wealth, or billionaires specifically, so that all of you out there stop thinking that any criticism of us should happen. Just my 2 cents in the pond. If you boys wouldn't mind, when we have a moment, I'd like to talk to everybody on our show today about Section 899.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So what is Section 899? Lloyd's of London is very happy it's gone. This was originally part of the big bill that they're moving through Congress and the Senate, and it was recently eliminated. If it had been enacted, it would have increased U.S. federal tax rates on incomes derived by taxpayers connected to jurisdictions designated as offending foreign countries, unquote. It would have impacted investors from foreign countries and increased tax burdens on individuals and corporations. UK businesses had viewed Section 899 as hitting them with a retaliatory tax. Lloyd's of London announced they're thankful for its elimination, and I quote, "It greatly supports Lloyd's business interests in the U.S., but all British companies with interests in the U.S., and will enable international investments into the United States to serve domestic businesses and communities," unquote. Lloyd's further went on to say this enables them to better serve their clients through tax avoidance. Some of you may recall that phrase. Tax avoidance is something for those of wealth and others actively leveraging to avoid taxes. None other than the actor Wesley Snipes was embroiled in a tax issue regarding tax avoidance, and the book Confessions of an Economic Hitman delved into that topic as well. So what's your net on this 899 thing? First, only people like us here at Rogue News would even raise this story with you, and Lord knows the rest of the U.S. media isn't even touching it. Secondly, I personally believe Section 899 was a ploy or a negotiating tactic by the Donald and those with him day one. By that I mean, go ahead. Yeah, I was going to say, by that I mean they never intended to include it in the bill, and they knew powerful interests would find it in the legislation quickly. This versus our elected officials who never read anything. It was put in there so that at the appropriate time, the United States could remove it from our budgeting to secure something from the Brits or others. So that is Section 899, which I assure you, you gotta dig to even find that was going on, because I had to dig to go find that was going on. I had a friend of mine reach out to me recently and say, "Hey, what do you know about 899?" And I'm like, there's a number of things that could be. And they were like, "You should go look into that."
It is not a zip code in Denver.
It is not a zip code in Denver,
area
but
code. Area
yeah, area code. But the net of it is, folks, is A, that kind of stuff happens all the time. But B, that, dare I use the word victory, was so important to very powerful people, including the London Corporation, that Lloyd's of London wrote an article about it.
Yeah, it was on my radar because that was going to affect markets. It was such a large deal. They call it a revenge tax. It's kind of what the news started to call it. If you're the equivalent of a policy wonk in the financial market, you might have caught it. So yeah, that was a big deal. But yeah, as soon as that hit, I'm like, oh, this is a art of the deal thing. This is so extreme. But I think also, if you think about it, that was put in place because of the unfair non-tariff barriers to trade. So there's tariffs, which are a very, clean number based on certain items. There are also non-tariff barriers to trade that act like tariffs. So in order to knock those down, we had to put a pretty extreme type of thing in the bill. And I think that's what did it. I mean, in the end, we can kind of do whatever we want in a certain way to make things happen. And it seems that the power still is behind Trump enough such that he can pull those kind of levers. So that's that's my bit on that.
Yeah. And the other thing too is if you actually read the legislation around 899, folks, you would almost wonder what the hell it was doing inside a U.S. Budgeting bill. Yeah. It was very obviously a shot at certain parties. But that's another reminder why I and others who are part of Rogue, why we look at non-traditional information, because it's my thing about the insurance industry. The insurance industry has no time for crap. They have no time for spin. They have no time for politics. It's just we gotta work from what we know and what we don't know, and that's why I continue to monitor. So it was funny while I'm looking up various vagaries about the insurance industry, my buddy gets a hold of me and goes, "You really need to look at 899." So I'm like, okay.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, connecting to the speaking of 899, I mean that kind of segues into the other thing that's on the agenda today, gentlemen, and that is the big beautiful bill. Have you guys seen the whole spat that's been re-inflamed between Elon and Trump? Are we again being played into theater while other things are happening? I mean, it's a funny thing when people, oh, it's going to raise the debt by 35 trillion. The way I take it is like, okay, well, we need, there's money that has come back ever since the tariffs, it's deemed to be very profitable so far. We're actually doing well with the tariffs, and the trade negotiations have been going pretty well as well. We need to become more of a physical economy than a speculative economy, and we're starting to see that in the big beautiful bill. That is, there's things and provisions that are in there that make that happen. Now, the only other thing is that it's going to raise our debt ceiling, we call it a death ceiling as well, but to 5 trillion, making us over 35 trillion in debt. It's actually more, folks. When you count entitlements and all these other programs, we're damn near close to 200 trillion in debt. We have so all this is.
I'm sorry.
But when you give half the entitled who are just starting to collect, you give them a certain, I don't know, jibby jab, and that they're not going to be collecting for too long.
No, don't need to be collecting. I think that's a big. I think that was part of the agenda. We were going broke. There's a couple of million that need to be removed from the drain, so to speak, and I think that's what occurred. Our real debt, when you count entitlements, is damn near 200. I think it's about 204 trillion. I could be mistaken, but it is close to that number. And that's not counting the debt that's in our financial system, which magically did not go away. It's just been reshuffled so many times. We just stopped talking about it. And I'm talking about the derivative nightmare. That's still there. It's in the background. It is the Reaper, the Grim Reaper that is always stalking in the background. Everybody's focusing on the 34 trillion in debt that we could potentially hit, or the 35 or 36 trillion in debt we could potentially hit with the big beautiful bill. And then others argue, well, here's the thing, like Lutnick was arguing, well, we have 500 trillion in total assets with the minerals in the ground. That's like me saying I have, $10 million in my sock drawer. Okay. It's just, there are some things. It's like when the U.S. says we have gold, and the rest of the world's like, where is it? It's deep storage. Okay, where is it being stored? It's in the earth. It's in the earth. Have you discovered it? No, but trust us, it's there.
I think smog is protecting it.
Oh yeah, smog from Smog the Dragon. Yeah, that's who's that's who's. In fact, I might have a video of smog actually protecting the U.S. Gold reserves. And let me pull that up real quick. And I'll show you guys this. So here it is. Oh, I found it, gentlemen. I absolutely found it. It's perfectly. There it is.
It's not the same kind of dragon we were talking about this morning, is it?
Oh yeah. No. It's not that kind of dragon. This is everybody wondering what were we talking about, folks. The gold is not in Fort Knox. The gold is deep storage gold. And we have a next generation advanced bioorganic weapon system known as smog. I know that will send a lot of environmentalists into a tizzy. Cowboy, if you want to pull this video into the frame real quick. This is our gold reserves, if you had any questions. There. There. I will not play any volumes here. I don't want to get a copyright strike, but here is smog. And he is, and here is one of the guys from Doge who's going to investigate. The eye is Palantir, and it's the burning eye, and there he is. The Doge employee found the deep storage gold, and this is how Lutnick knows. There it is. Look at all that gold. This is how
you thought you would find it in Fort Knox, but instead you found it in my cave. How
Yes.
dare you audit me, human?
Yes, exactly. So rest of these, folks. Rest of these. That's where the deep storage gold is, and we could all, relax. So with this
Our
big
country is
beautiful
run by
bill,
dorks, dude. They have
dude,
companies named
these are
Palantir.
midwits. These are
Run by
midwits.
dorks.
We are run by dorks. I love it. Yeah, I love it. Yeah,
Seriously, dude.
I'd like to weigh in to quote from Big Bang Theory.
go ahead.
You say derivatives, and I just start having flashbacks to 1987, 1988, and both the reality of what happened with derivatives in those years, folks. I was in high school, but I'm not a normal person, so I actually monitored this shit. But I also remember being the really weird kid watching C-SPAN late at night with Ross Perot doing one of his talks where he starts talking about derivatives, where he's like, let me explain to you what a derivative is.
Let me explain a derivative. No, hold on a minute.
But on this thing about the budget and the debt, a couple of things. And again, this is all a magic trick, and we've got to keep our heads about us. The first thing is the Congressional Budget Office for many years has been heavily influenced by loosely said, because you know how I feel about political parties, but it has been heavily influenced by the Democrat Party. So of course it's going to go down the road of this is going to increase debt and wear and tear on the United States, which isn't a problem when they're in office, but it is a problem when the Republicans are in office. Okay, fine. The second thing is, to quote from economics, the term ceteris paribus, all things being equal, those calculations are based on the way in which the economy is currently functioning. And I don't mean to say, don't worry, because it all works out in the end. I don't mean that. But what I do mean is there are certain provisions in the budget, as well as other things we're doing economically, as well as the tariff activity. Oh, there he is. God, I miss Ross. He was crazy as hell, but he's kind of like Jim Trafficant. He's our crazy. And only Ross Perot would pay for his own ad and quote Cicero from Rome. But anyway, there are certain provisions in the budget, as well as other things the administration's doing to, first of all, unload U.S. aid and other burdens on our economy. Although, noting what I said on last Friday's show, as far as U.S. aid is concerned, that may just be repackaged into a different agency, because we're not going to stop using money to overthrow other governments. But there is growth and a greatly reduced overhead of the U.S. government that will be forthcoming. Now, does it mean we're going to pay off trillions? No, not necessarily. But will it be as bad? Hard to say, because we don't really know what the effect of this will be on the economy. So these calculations are based on all things being equal today, not tomorrow. And then the other thing is, because God knows we've been talking about it on Rogue, Tom Luongo's been talking about it, many others have been talking about it, which is there's still the possibility some way, somehow, part of the plan here is they're just going to have a debt forgiveness or write it off. Or for certain parties out there who use the phrase a debt jubilee or similar, any of that is possible. So it's not to say that these trillions don't matter. They do. But you also have to understand that these debts and things between countries are, in reality, they're weapons. Yeah. It's not just a function of economics. It's not just you sitting in a classroom and a teacher or a professor saying, this is micro and macroeconomics and these are how these things work. Debt or leverage, to use the term they use in the finance world, debt is a weapon. Economics is a weapon. GDP is a weapon.
Correct.
I yield the floor.
Yeah, very well said, man. Very well said. So this is what the whole thing with this big, beautiful bill. Folks, there's a lot of crap in there. And one of the things that I don't like is just the other day when we were talking about Peter Thiel, the guy's like warning about surveillance, but he's like the surveiller.
He is surveillance, right?
He is surveillance. It's like the peeping Tom, or he in the town is like, hey, be careful, man. There's a peeping Tom in the neighborhood. Well, it's him. It's that's who this the Peter Thiel is, and this bill there's a lot of things in this bill that has to do with surveillance, that has to do with the spending and the ratcheting up. So what with this, I think this whole Trump Musk feud thing, I think it's a major distraction. I mean, Musk is talking about we're going to create a secondary another political party. None of these things are actually feasible. So it's funny that that things are being played out like this, and people are, and now we have the camps. We have the half of MAGA, or we need the big beautiful bill. There's another section of MAGA says that we don't need it, and there's the normies who are always sitting on the fence, and then you have the leftists who are calling for Mamdani and AOC ticket for 2028. So interesting times we're definitely living in, Veles.
Yeah, and we're also using a lot of language that is inflammatory. We're using language that is intensifying. We're using language that is distracting. Just a moment ago, you quite rightly referred to the term camps, for the alligator holding facilities that ICE may use. That's done by design, folks, because there's a certain, given as much work as I'm doing right now on the West Coast, I'm not even gonna go there. But if you could read the text in KTLA articles or similar out on the West Coast, I've talked with ALGO and V about this a lot, when we're texting each other about various things. There are times that I feel when I read media on the West Coast that it's like East Germany. It's just that, or the Soviet crop reports.
Pravda is bestia.
Yeah, we've had glorious wheat harvest this year. It's the mayor of LA can do no wrong. She can say the most absurd crap, and it's immediately ripped off the air on the West Coast and then replaced with a soundbite about how she's standing up against tyranny, which also is another inflammatory phrase. But you use the word camps, and I'm telling you right now, the West Coast media is just having a meltdown. Now, for some people, it's like, well, good, and I'm tired of this problem and this, that, and the other. And it's like, but this is optics. This is keep them distracted. Talk to them about the benefits they're losing, this, that, and the other. Where also, by the way, for whatever it's worth, I would like to point out, today's July 1st, and what does that mean? Well, that means the good citizens of the state of California, a piece of legislation that passed a while ago becomes active today. What does that mean in dog years? It means California gas prices, as of my talking to you, just went up 70 cents a gallon.
Are you kidding me?
I'm as serious as a heart attack, and that's gas.
Oh my God.
That's
But
gas.
comrade, why do you complain?
Yes, you shouldn't own the vehicle anyway.
Yes, you should all ride.
It's the people's car, not yours. Anyway, a couple of things about this you should be aware. Now, that 70-cent figure, is going to depend on where you live in California. Are you in the city? Are you in the outer regions of the state, up in the wine country or what have you, and other factors. But it's interesting because the 70-cent figure was reported by California media. So it's like, well, that's coming from the horse's mouth. The other thing is that you have to remember, when we hear that, our first reaction will be, well, that's California. I live in Iowa, or I live in New York. Why does that matter?
Because there's psychos in Iowa and Illinois and New York that are salivating to do the same thing.
Well, that when they're not attending a My Little Pony convention. But no, we have to remember the immense influence the state of California has on the U.S. economy. So this tax increase isn't just California, folks. You have to remember, it's going to impact diesel prices too. Why does that matter? Well, the diesel fuel is used for over-the-road trucks. It's used for rail. It's used for cargo ships who need to be refueled after they drop off their cargo in Huntington Beach and similar. So that's a national problem. That's not just at a state level. So verily we go forward.
Man. And you know what? It couldn't happen to a nicer set of people. California, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, what is going on?
But it's not. Tortured. but it's not them. Even the most, I'll go there. Even the most activist Californians, and that's a large population, did not vote for this in the true sense of voting for it. I mean, you've got one political party who pretty much runs the state. And as we all know, there are no political parties, but you do have 5 families, 6 families, 7 families running that state. And they do have certain interests when these things pass. What did we cover on Rogue a show or two ago about what's going on in California? That, again, history's repeating itself. That the Gettys and Gavin Newsom's father, William, were responsible for strong-arming the government of the state to enable the building of the Santa Fe Railroad that ran from the southern part of the state to the north. Why? Because they were using that rail line to move oil and leverage all of the oil being pumped out of California. Back when they actually used the oil in that state, California was one of the biggest oil producers in the United States outside of Texas, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. But the other aspect of that was, for my brothers and sisters on the other side of the fence, much of the land that was used to build that rail line had people living on it who were lower income people. And eminent domain and everything else was used to take away their homes and where they lived to build those rail lines. And when the Gettys and the Newsoms and others were no longer making the kind of profits off of oil that they wanted, they divested from that and moved their money into other things. And the state of California got stuck with the rail line. Now, much of those rail lines eventually fell into disuse. But what's happening right now? The state of California is building, supposedly, a new high-speed rail line who's 10 years behind schedule and billions of dollars over budget, but that doesn't matter because they're using state money and federal money to build it. Now, again, this isn't a good guys, bad guys analogy, but one of the first things Donald did, and you better believe it was by design, one of the first things he did when he took office was he cut off the supply of money to build that rail line in California. Now, is that about making prudent use of U.S. government money? Please note our previous discussion about the economy. No, that's a political move by one powerful side against another powerful side because they're rebuilding the same damn rail line they already had, who fell into disuse at taxpayers' expense, because this time they're going to move rare earth minerals like lithium and other things out of mines in California, who actually, unlike the gold, actually have been discovered. They actually do know where they are. They have been assessed by geologists, and they know how much is sitting there. But there's even rumors that down the road, at some point, they're going to sell this to Californians by saying, well, we know you're all suffering under these high gas prices, but not to worry. We're going to build this high-speed rail line, and some of the track is going to be used to leverage the in-state refineries and bring cheaper gasoline and diesel fuel to all of you consumers who aren't already driving electric cars. It's all a rich man's game.
Yeah. Yeah, it truly is. And this is why Thomas Massey's the sole guy voting no. People are like, why are you voting no? Because I read the bill.
Right.
I read the bill. And it's incredible to me. It also kind of shows that we have a major problem in this country, and it's a uni-party system. It truly is. I mean, the founding fathers, and this is a quote from Grok itself on a lot of the questions that people were asking Grok in regard to the big, beautiful bill. And Grok's response was this: the founding fathers, like Madison and Washington, feared factions and a two-party system would divide society, which it has, foster corruption, which it has, and weaken governance, which it has. In Federalist number 10, Madison warned factions could prioritize self-interest over the common good, which it has. Washington's farewell address cautioned against parties causing distrust and instability, which they're doing. Divide and conquer. They're creating factional rivalries while they themselves pilfer and rape and pillage our nation's wealth. They worried about tyranny, where one group dominates, and gridlock from competing interests. Today's polarization and fiscal issues, like those in the recent spending debate, echo these concerns. Yet, some argue the two-party system offers stability and clear voter choices. The debates persist on whether its benefits outweigh the risks. And I'm telling you right now, guys, there was a time in this country where we had over 154 different political parties, and the things were debated voraciously. Now we have a uni-party. There's really not much difference between the Democrats and the Republicans, like going car shopping. If you go to the German cars, or you go, hell, let's not even go to German cars, let's go to the American cars. Ford and Chevy compete so closely together, they're essentially making the same freaking cars, man. To the point where they're sharing components, they're sharing transmissions, and you got fanboys in Ford and fanboys in Chevy screaming at each other like they're diametrically opposed. No, they're literally making the same car. That's how closely they compete. It's the same thing that occurs with the Demon Rats and the Republicrats. It's the same.
When you only have two parties, it makes all the payoffs very, very simple.
Very simple.
And this is why, class, it's so critical to read the Bill of Rights, the Constitution. I'm channeling our friend Bill and others. And why, during the coup, so many of you were successful in deposing people as individual citizens, because you can, I'm using the word practice very loosely, you can manage the law as yourself for yourself. You cannot practice law for others. That's a definite no-no. But under the civil procedures of your state, which all of you should go online and go print out and read, enables you to know what your rights are. They count on us to not read the damn Constitution. They count on us not to read civil procedure in all of our individual states in which we live. That also goes for California. The answers are there. Your means are there, using websites like Pacer, Pacer, which is a big legal lookup. Yeah, it charges you a few cents per page, but you can literally find out anything about anyone. Yeah. And that's not just your neighbors or family members that you're suspicious of. That's your elected politicians. Looking up real estate holdings, which law firms your officials are working with. It's the old joke about nothing is a better disinfectant than sunlight. These people cannot stand exposure. They cannot stand things being brought into the light of day. Well, my local media is completely bought off. Don't doubt it. Do you have a public interest website that your neighbors and friends have in your local area? Are there websites dedicated to just your local area? What about public forums or opportunities to speak to councils and similar? Kai Alley, it's Pacer. Just look it up online. You're looking for the Pacer legal lookup. You'll have to create an account, but it doesn't cost you money until you start looking at certain pages or what have you. The tools are all there. I had a lawyer yell at me in a courtroom over the fact I accessed the Pacer site and kept trying to argue to the judge that it's illegal for, quote unquote, a person to go on Pacer. And I just kind of looked at the judge and smiled, and he looked at the attorney and goes, move on. We all know it's a public website. You lawyers act like only you guys are allowed to look at it. Right. And it's a hard road, folks. I'll admit that. And that's why periodically we communicate here on the show that basically teach yourself the basics of law course that you can take online. So yeah, this is all a big mess and this is all a pain in the butt. But at the same time, you do have resources at your disposal. Never forget that.
Well, on that conversation, when I was in the insurance business for 20 years. And so we used to have to deal with lawyers, particularly injury lawyers. And I remember being new and, in my early 20s and kind of a little intimidated. And I remember my supervisor was like, they're not magical people, right? They just have a title and they understand the law, and the law is the law, and a contract is a contract. So they can say whatever they want. But in the end, a contract is a contract. For that kind of like, oh, okay, well, I guess, yeah, they're not magical people.
Well, and that's also to the heart of John Singleton's commentary here on Rogue as well, folks, about obviously a very painful subject, a very sensitive subject, but when he talks about divorce, that technically, and I'm not an attorney, I'm not dispensing legal advice, but that technically a divorce is a limited liability corporation. There's really legally, unless you grant the court the authority, and that's the big one, because we've developed a whole industry around managing divorce cases. But that also goes to things we've said on Rogue that I know for a lot of folks, it's like, what? No, you got to be kidding. Marriage and the production of livestock, we call them children or chattels. That's why people out there who are going to court and arguing about, I don't want my kid being medically altered by my spouse who's mad or what have you. Your kids are your livestock. That is the legal argument you have to make in a court of law. Not about rights, not about what I want, not about parental duty, et cetera, et cetera. It's my old mantra about you're arguing the case in the wrong way. Of which, speaking of which, it looks like the Diddy case is about to explode on the tarmac. But hey,
so he gets to walk free, I guess, huh?
That or a slight fine, we'll see. But yeah, we've got some nonsense going on with the jury. And no doubt somebody has been gotten to, shall we say? But it's not just us. Many others were saying, what do you call it? That he's not going to get convicted. No. If he got convicted, he's going to tear a whole bunch of people down with him. And to the other narrative we had, the front story on Daily Mail at the moment is Tesla stock is crashing because the Donald is saying, hey, we should look into Elon's government contracts.
Time to buy.
Yeah, that by the way, folks, is another psyop and messing with your heads. It's like, wait a minute. So for how long has Elon had these sweet deals with the government?
Forever, basically, at this point.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, how many times have I said on these shows, Elon is a Department of Defense asset. He has been. That's why he's worth billions. It's also why Jeff Bezos has 3% body fat and no neck anymore. And married a woman that can't be allowed to sit out in sunlight or she'll melt. They're all creations. There's no way Jeff Bezos is allowed to accumulate that kind of wealth.
Well, his dad was a major government lackey, and he was up there with DARPA.
Yes.
Yeah. His dad was DARPA. The whole, I made this company in the garage, in my garage. That's
I love those memes that show like I built this company in my garage, and then it shows a picture of the garage, and it's like the person's parents are like billionaires living in the Hamptons.
Yeah.
The garage.
Exactly.
We had a couple things on the menu here. There's JFK Jr. revelations, and I think the slowing down adoption of Bitcoin. So, V, do you want to?
Yeah, one of the things with the slowing down on adoption of Bitcoin. A lot of people are like, "Oh, the crypto is going to save the world. It's going to save the world. It's going to save the world. It's going to save the world." You ain't going to do jack. You ain't going to do jack. Let me explain. It's not. It's folks. The only function crypto has, and I'm going to give it to you straight as somebody who works in the industry, and I'll tell you straight up. The only thing crypto does is for fiat speculate. It's all it is. People use it for payment settlements. That's why stable coins have a future. It's fast settlement, but Bitcoin it's going to be a reserve currency. The IMF, okay, and the BIS, all right, they have such a stranglehold on where Bitcoin adoption is going to go, and I mean this. Like, think about this. They're the ones who pressured El Salvador to drop Bitcoin as legal tender and roll back every other one of their Bitcoin policies, right? Not to mention Bitcoin is an absolute crap technology to begin with. It's absolute crap. It's slow. It's diabolical. Well, I was able to spend $50. Yeah, try doing a multi-million-dollar deal and see how long it takes for your trade to settle. It's stupid. Successfully pressured cars 2023. Bitcoin repeal through regional banking bodies. They've been responsible for the lack of follow-through from Bitcoin campaign and rhetoric from Javier Milei in Argentina. They put a sock in that. They put a sock in Pakistan's Bitcoin plans. They're. I mean, the list goes on and on, from Cameroon to Swaziland to Tokyo to Toronto. Bitcoin ain't doing jack squat. You think the money power is going to allow a bunch of plebeians to use alternative currencies outside of their control? You're crazy. And this is why, apart from speculation and profiteering, crypto's not doing much of anything, folks. There's not a single major company anywhere in the world that's utilizing crypto in any sort of a large scale. Doesn't exist anywhere on planet Earth. Hell, I can't even go to Starbucks and pay in Bitcoin. That tells you all you need to know. You know?
Well, I think people get attached to narratives, and think about this. Do you want to be right, or do you want to make money?
Yeah, exactly. If you want to be right, then follow whatever narrative you want to follow. But if you want to make money, then you can't go along with this BS. This is it's garbage.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a handful of cryptos that are going to be adopted by that system.
100%.
But I think the only cryptos that will do well in the long term are those that will be adopted by that system.
Yep.
So it's a question of, like, it's great to be an anarchist, but do you want to be a billionaire anarchist, or like do you want to be a broke anarchist?
Mm-hmm. It's a tool. It's a tool among many. It is not the end all. I have lived in parts of the country, folks, where people invest in one stock because it's the main corporate entity in that city. It'll never go down, and all this other crap. And it's like, no. It's risk avoidance and risk management. What was our other topic there, Algo? That
RFK Jr. revelations.
Yeah, that's what the Hep B and the autism rate. I think it was 1,100 or 1,300, almost 1,300% increase in risk of autism. Well, that's out. That's something we knew about. But Veles, the reason why I brought that up is this: wouldn't that open up? Are we seeing a path, maybe a glimmer of hope that we could possibly see potential lawsuits here against Big Pharma?
Yes and no. Because the pharmaceutical firms are still protected under the legislation that was passed. Yes, folks, under Reagan, with a Democrat House. I was alive in those years. But yeah, what it will do is open the door to a couple of things. One, and not to go too far down that rabbit hole, the more folks you have out there angry about something, the more they will start working together to try and do something about their anger. That's a massive oversimplification, but you know what I'm saying. And where I'm going with this is, we've said on Rogue, again, many others have too, we've said on Rogue several times that if you became a witness for the government, if you went to the government and went to government prosecutors and said, these pharmaceutical firms abused, which is the correct word, they abused the terms of that legislation, because who was the party held accountable? The government, not these companies. And this is no different than my years working as a government contractor. If you can essentially show that a contractor took advantage of the government in ways the government didn't realize, that it was like basically being defrauded, you can become a witness for the government and sue that company. And this has happened, and we've had a couple of these types of cases we've raised here on Rogue, including but not limited to a woman partner at Booz Allen, who she went to federal prosecutors after she exhausted, she followed it to a T. She went through every internal option there was. Nobody wanted to do anything about the problem. Booz was overcharging the government. She went to the government and said, I'll be your witness, and I'll help you bring the case. And she also leveraged the legal provision that says you get 20-30% back of whatever the government makes. This is no different than turning in, quote unquote, a tax cheat. And she got paid an insane amount of money. And it was the same with, bear with me, Birkenfeld, the guy who wrote the book Lucifer's Banker, got thrown in prison here in the United States.
Birkenfeld.
Yeah. But as soon as he got out, he got a huge check, because a charitable group told him while he was sitting in jail, and they said, hey, by the way, because the government is going to reclaim billions of dollars from these Swiss banks, you're owed 30% of that. And the government was less than happy when he showed up saying, I want to be paid, because they had to pay him. So what I do think is, and I think I want to say dangerous, but it's a purely academically, it's an interesting situation, because we now have revelations about the pharmaceutical industry that are inescapable. And I'm speaking of the people that we are not, and I mean that sincerely, we are not making fun of, but folks who are still clinging to, we had to take the shots. It was a fatal illness, this, that, and the other. It's like you were lied to. Your government lied to you, and the pharmaceutical firms lied to you. And by the way, we're gaming the system like a son of a bitch when we say, hey, government, wink, wink, nod, nod. The pharmaceutical firms took advantage of you. Here's the evidence. We should sue them. The government knows they were in on it, but that doesn't matter. They're the government, so they can nail the pharmaceutical firms. And again, speaking of insurance companies, if you monitor carefully what's going on with insurance coverage of pharmaceutical firms, that is your, to use the poker phrase, that is your tell. If we've got a lot of rewriting of policies, if on the back page of annual reports by pharmaceutical firms, namely Pfizer and Moderna, among others, we're finding all sorts of vague, esoteric language about reuse of capital and this, that, and the other, and changes to insurance coverages or whatever, that's your tell. That's your indicator that they know they're going to get hit. They can't be sued, but the government can sue them, because that's what the legislation said. And this is why, forgive me, this is why we have to read. We've got to read these things. And again, I hate to say it, it's why Lloyd's of London will read our legislation more thoroughly than any elected official we have, because it's in their interest to do so.
Yep.
So now, the slippery slope, it's kind of like us talking about Jeff Epstein or other topics where I've said, disclosures about whatever are dangerous, because they're trying to steer us towards, hey, this is really bad and you should be angry at Jeff Epstein who's dead and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, wait a minute, what about all the arms dealing and the money laundering? No, you don't want to look at that. You want to look, look, naked women, look at that. It's the same thing here, which is we have collusion. In fact, I'll go there. The United States government and the pharmaceutical firms entered into a RICO violation. This is racketeering. And if I was, 75 and I'm a bar certified lawyer, and I was just handed like a fatal medical diagnosis, I'm dead serious. I would be drafting up paperwork right now to the International Court of The Hague in the Netherlands to bring charges against the U.S. government for collusion with the pharmaceutical firms. Because a lot of people made money. And they made money because they knew how that was going to go down. So the more Kennedy talks about this topic and the more there are revelations, I mean, let's not forget, folks, I think we brought it up last Friday, the FDA just said a couple of weeks ago, oh yeah, these drugs are harmful. Oh, and by the way, if you're a male between the ages of like 12 and I think it was 25 or whatever, you're most at risk, and it will damage your heart. And the list goes on. I mean, I was going off this weekend at a wedding I attended to someone I trust about all these. If I got to see one more damn story in the news about medical professionals are stunned at increases in colon cancer and this, that, and the other, and we're blaming everything from clean water to the sun to the fact that you drank an occasional soda. Medical professionals now believe sugar in candy is it's like, oh my God, then why in 1975 did we not have these surges, keyword surges? So the danger is that what Kennedy's talking about may open an even bigger door for revelations about what's going on here and the degree to which everyone's been lied to. However, at the same time, because they do this, Kennedy's also talking about wearable bracelets to make sure that all your medical information is being monitored on a daily basis. So it's a bait and switch. But yeah, I don't know the pharma firms will be sued. I do believe the pharma firms will be paying billions to public relations companies to fix any damage they're going to take from this. I think those enterprising enough need to monitor very carefully the financial reports and similar of these companies, as well as some of the back page stuff, Amazing Polly kind of revelations and similar, about are they currently actively rewriting their insurance coverages. Oh, and equally for the boards of directors. You know, you can file a FOIA or similar to your attorneys general's offices in certain states and say, hey, are those executives upping their insurance coverage because they think they personally are going to get sued? Inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, I think of it, the medical community is shocked, I tell you.
Yeah.
Oh, good Lord.
Very well said, gents.
Yeah, and I think just to highlight the
Lunacy
of the 80s. I think it was 1986 when the law was put into place, such that the vaccines are safe and effective, but the jab manufacturers, let's say, they were not personally legally accountable. I know you said that already, but so how does the jab court work? The way it works is that you file a lawsuit and it goes to the jab court, which is a special court, and the the remedies, if you will, the monies paid out, which have been billions, by the way, are from taxpayer money. So the people who are awarded for being injured by any jab, in particular, going back to the 80s, are taxes paid for that. The big companies had they were not at risk of losing any money at all. And when you have companies that make that kind of product, like imagine you're driving a vehicle and whatever car, I don't want to like piss any car companies off. But let's just say Dodge, you crash into Dodge because like parts fail. I'll piss them off. And you can sue them because their product didn't work properly. Right. But you can't do that with the jab companies. You actually, imagine a Dodge fails and then the money comes out of the taxpayer money to pay you. Like, I mean, effectively, the nationalization of a company, they nationalized all of the risk, but they didn't nationalize the reward. And then the reward came in the form of a lobby to the politicians. So nothing is going to get fixed in this country until there is a severe scaling back of the corruption involved with these politicians. And that's just, I don't think it's ever going to happen until heads roll and blood is in the streets. And I'm not calling for violence here. I'm just saying that those kind of changes do not occur without violence. They just don't.
Two key things on this topic. One, it's also worth noting, and this is true, that with all of the government cutbacks or attempts to cut back certain spending by certain federal agencies and so on, that the vaccine adverse reaction system, VAERS, VAERS, the system that monitors negative reactions to vaccines of any kind, is basically been defunded.
Well, even when it was working, only about 1% of the incidents were reported.
Yes, there was a massive backlog, but what happened? There were people out there, and this is why we need people like Bill. There were people out there who know the system, they know how to pull the levers, and they kept going to inspector general's offices at various agencies and others saying, they're behind. This is not an unfunded congressional mandate. They must produce that data. Or, behind door number 2, under this provision on page 1127, you hand the database over to us and we can go through it. Now that scared the shit out of everybody. So it's like, okay, we'll put money in there. Yeah. So it's
guys, I got to drop off. I got a 12:15, but you guys can keep going.
Take care, B.
Cheers. See it.
So, in conclusion, we gotta. I hate to say it. It's like 23andMe. We got to know what they're doing with the data that they do have, and the complaints or the adverse effects that were filed. We do need to understand that. So that's an important part of this, is understanding that the mechanism by which you would have government, I don't want to say approved, but government managed and released data has been cut off. And so it does beg the question whether or not the more Kennedy puts attention on that topic. Now, like I said, he has an agenda. They all do. And it kind of looks like we know what that agenda is. But that said, when it comes to this specific topic, the more attention he puts on it, the more they're trying to cut off visibility. But you can't stop the visibility, but you have to be willing and you have to understand how to impose upon the government or similar enough pain and enough visibility to make them do it. Also, to Algo's last comment there about change, if you will, I've encountered a couple of folks out there who are, I don't know, I guess you would call them libertarian activists. I'm not quite sure how to label them. But I mentioned this on a prior show about a year and a half ago. And what they came up with was almost like right out of the 1800s when it came to union movements and ideological movements and similar, and that's this. They put forward the idea, what if we've got 4 or 5 of us who are violently committed to what we're doing? And what they were proposing doing is they target low-hanging fruit, they get paid. Even if there's a non-disclosure agreement that says you don't disclose what came out of this. But you can't change what they know about that litigation against, let's say, pharmaceutical firms or executives or elected officials. And then they take that money and they use it to fund, like basically, this is literally what they were proposing. And by the way, folks, this is lawfare. This is the way in which that side works when they do this. You're basically getting people to pay you to sue them. So you get a settlement out of, let's say, the Pelosi's. Then you take that money and you go sue somebody in the Texas oil industry for something. And then you take that money and then you go after Les Wexner. And
Your
it's like,
guy.
yeah, oh God, I got a real, yeah. Anyway, where I'm going with this is that would work. That would work, and there's precedent for that. In fact, I hate to say it, all the patent litigation out there out of that little town in Texas that goes on, which is nothing but a racket, that would work. The only question is, do you raise such visibility on a certain topic? Like, for instance, not just, well, I didn't know and I invested in, or I as an elected official, blah, 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 but that you knowingly knew people were going to die. Kind of like the former governor of New York.
Negligence versus willful.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah,
my friend.
much different penalty for willful versus negligence.
Yeah, you start exposing willful, and you better be living on a mountain with retired Navy SEALs protecting you, because to paraphrase Patrick Ryan, these people will hunt you down to your last genome. But you could do some real damage.
Is that what you were saying? You'd wait till you were like 75 before you put out one of those lawsuits?
Well, I'd have to be a lawyer too. But yeah. I don't know. There's still time on the odometer. I might be able to pass the bar. I've already got 4 degrees. What the hell's one more?
Well, you don't really. I mean, you don't have to have a degree, really, do you?
Actually, the bar in a number of states has now said that you have to have a law degree before, because there's people who've done that, folks. They've just studied really hard. And I forget what it is. You can take the bar exam, I think, depending on the state you're in, you can take the bar exam like up to 4 times. And if you still can't pass it after the 4th time, then you've got to wait like 2 years or whatever. But if you just kind of walls of Troy the thing and just keep banging at it, you will pass. And there are folks out there who have studied and they've passed the bar and they never went to law school. And the legal community and academia is violently angry about that because it's a little club and they want you to go to law school. So, yeah, I know California and a couple of other states have passed or are trying to pass rules that say you cannot take the bar exam unless you've gone to law school.
Well, yeah, just take it in another state.
It won't matter.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's a state-by-state bar, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's well, you know, I don't know. I think that somebody like our friend and you know, our friend we talked about earlier should be able to knock that down, because you should have the right to challenge any law without representation.
Yes,
and I think that's constitutional. I don't think there's anything in the Constitution that says you have to be an attorney to practice law.
Well, as an individual, you can represent yourself.
That's what I mean. Not
yeah.
Forgive me. Let's rephrase that. You don't need an attorney for representation. You can represent yourself.
You can
That's what I
represent
mean.
yourself. You cannot represent others, and you cannot bring, let's say, a class action lawsuit as a person. But as a person, even in a court of law, and this is why when attorneys have another attorney represent them, I'm telling you, folks, there is so much behind the scenes winking and nodding between the judge and those attorneys, because the last thing they want is something like the following, which is an attorney is sitting on the stand, is asked a question by opposing counsel, and a bar certified lawyer sitting in the witness chair starts quoting civil procedure about why that attorney's wrong, because they don't want that kind of revelation going into the public domain, that anybody who reads this sort of stuff or reads transcripts of court cases is like, hey, I didn't realize I could actually ask questions of the judge while I'm sitting in the witness stand. But yeah. And of course, turning Japanese, a lawyer walks into a bar. I know a number of lawyers, and they are the first to start laughing about there are no lawyer jokes. They're all true, or whatever. There's only like one joke that's true. The rest is a joke. The rest are all true. On that note, I also as well have to go back to my job, and I know you do too, Algo. So
I've just been trading the whole time we're talking.
Oh, good man. I was paying bills while you and V were talking.
Oh no, that's when you've been trading really actively since like 2017, it just becomes second nature.
And folks, this is how good Algo is, that he can trade while being on the show.
Yeah, well, trading and winning is another thing altogether, right?
True, very true.
And I'm winning. All right, everybody. Thank you all for watching. Veles, thank you for coming on today. And I guess we'll catch you guys tomorrow. I believe we'll have another 11 a.m. show. So far, that's the plan. So we'll let you all know in the Discord. And thanks again, Veles.
Sure.